let me know what you think, honestly. And I'll try to go with the majority. It doesn't matter to me either way, but I don't want to be, annoying with a long intro. Okay, so let's get to tonight's case. I would say this is probably one of the craziest cases that you've never heard. And I have no idea why people haven't been talking about it. I heard about it on the news when it was happening, but it is a New York case. It happened in Brooklyn, and this was back in the end of February, beginning of March of 2022, so a short time ago. And I kept meaning to do this case, and I was thinking other people were going to be doing it too, but no. So, let's go and get into it. Okay, let's start with a description of a woman named Susan Leyden. She was born in 1953 in Yonkers, New York, but she spent most of her life in Teaneck, New Jersey. She had 2 parents and 3 siblings. And I don't have a lot of info about her past except to say that in the 70s, so remember she was born in 53, so in the 1970s, she lost her father, her 2 brothers, and her sister consecutively. I don't know from what, but it wasn't all at one time. She just lost all of them in that decade, which was, as you can imagine, extremely rough and traumatic and just too much for one person. So she did wind up developing problems with addiction as well as mental illness. Now, she did go ahead and get married in 1976, and she had 1 child in 1985. She divorced in 1992 and never remarried. So she remained single from 92 until 22. Okay. Now she had herself a pretty successful business as a jewelry designer. But as time went by, she became estranged from her family, what was left of it. Ultimately, her mother did die as well, but later down the road. And she also became estranged from her friends, for the most part, most of her friends. And that was said to have occurred over the last 12 years of her life. So, she moved into a LGBTQ senior housing center in a psychiatrist at that time for some kind of treatment. I don't think it was much treatment though. He had also noticed that he had developed a hatred towards women. Also, around this same time, age 13 or 14, he dressed up for Halloween as a female, and he really liked it, but he reports that he pushed away all those feelings. And he hid those feelings for a very, very long time. Now, he as an adult went on to lead a life full of crime, starting in the 1950s. But we're going to start with a crime in 1963 for our discussion. It was March of 63, and he committed a burglary and rape of a woman named Clementine Benefield. And his girlfriend at the time, whose name was Jacqueline Bonds, she witnessed it. She was there. I don't know exactly how that went down, but she wound up being subpoenaed to testify as a witness for Clementine. Clementine was still alive, okay? She was lucky enough to live through this. So, Jacqueline was supposed to testify, but before she could testify, Harvey murdered her. That was in April of 63. She was his live-in girlfriend, and she had told him in front of her mother at some point prior to this event. She told him that she was breaking up with him. And he said, "I'll get you." So we don't know, did he kill her because she broke up with him, or so she couldn't testify, or both? We don't know. But anyway, in April, he saw her in the hallway of their building. He shot her once in the hallway. Then she ran into their apartment, and he shot her a second time in the apartment, and she died. So he was found guilty of this crime, and he went away for a very long time. He was sentenced to 20 years to life for murder. Now, while he was in there, he was evaluated by a psychiatrist, and he was diagnosed with less than they did the first go round. And it really took a long time for him to ultimately get out again. And at one point at the parole board meeting, he complained about the people on the parole board, saying that he has a problem with women and he doesn't think he's getting a fair trial, let's call it, by the women on the parole board. And that didn't help him get out, okay, but ultimately, I guess he said what he had to say. And believe it or not, they let him out again. Can you believe what I'm saying to you right now? Can you believe it? They let him out in 2019. But wait, let me go back. In the 90s, Harvey met a transgender woman in the prison, and they talked a bit, and Harvey was convinced to go ahead and go on hormone treatment and transition into a woman. So, at that point in the 90s, Harvey changed her name to the opposite of what it originally was. So it was Harvey Marcellin, and at the transition it became Marcellin Harvey. Okay? So now we're going to refer to her as it with female pronouns. Okay? And we'll say Marcellin now. So I want to be completely respectful, alright? So Marceline got out of prison in 2019 as a female lesbian, according to herself. And she moved into some housing in Brooklyn. Now, also, another thing I want to mention, which doesn't have a lot to do with this case, but it's interesting. Harvey, in 1971, was in the prison called Attica, which is in upstate New York. And they had a prison uprising, which lasted 5 days, where the prisoners took over the prison and they held the staff hostage. And on the 5th day, whoever was sent in to help, they tear gassed the prison yard, and then they just started shooting. They wound up killing 10 of the staff hostages, 29 of the inmates, and they wounded like 89 other people. So it was a big mess. But Harvey was there for that, so just something interesting to know about. So anyway, we're back to 2019. Marceline is out of prison, moves into an apartment, and she spends a lot of time in Tompkins Park in the East Village in Manhattan. That is where she claims to have met Susan Leyden. Okay. Now, according to Marceline, she was the queen of their friend group in Tompkins Park. It was kind of a get-together of sort of homeless types of people, I believe. I believe they So as I said, oftentimes Susan would sleep over. Now, let's jump to February 27th of 2022. Susan was last seen entering Marcellin's apartment building. She was carrying a shopping cart while she was wheeling it. She would never be seen alive again. Now, on March 2nd, a friend reported Susan missing because the friend was supposed to see her on February 28th, and she hadn't heard from her. Also on March 2nd, a man spotted a suspicious looking shopping cart with a big black garbage bag in it, very close to Marcellin's building. Police came and found it to be a headless torso. So they started looking for video footage from various, buildings around until they found the image of Marcellin pushing this same shopping cart up to where it was left. Somehow they figured out whose body it was, because I guess they put together who was missing, and somehow they figured that bit out. And they got footage from Marcellin's building showing Susan walking in the door on the 27th and never walking out again. They got a search warrant. They went up to Marcellin's apartment and found the head of Susan. They also found footage from Home Depot showing Marcellin and another woman, not Susan, another woman, purchasing garbage bags, cleaning supplies, and a sawzall, which is an electric saw. And this is one of the most shocking details. There is footage of Marcellin riding her scooter. It's like a mobility scooter, riding it around in the 99-cent store with the severed leg wrapped in a garbage bag, almost using it as a cushion in the back of the seat of the scooter. Yeah, that's what I said. And also, another leg was found not far from where the torso was found, on a different street corner in another garbage bag on March 7th. Anyway, I don't have to tell you that Marcellin was arrested. And she pled not guilty. She said she didn't do it. And a lot of people are saying, how could she do it? She was 83. She rode a mobility scooter. Not like she could walk, okay, but I guess she was somewhat weak. I'm guessing, weak and frail. I mean, when you look at her picture, she doesn't look like the picture of health, So people are saying, how could she do it? I mean, how could she do it alone? Someone must have helped her or something. But who knows? You don't know. Anyway, in prison, where she is at she said that on the day when Susan came, on the 27th, 2 other women came as well. One of them was Jillian, that's the name, which we believe is the woman who was with her in Home Depot. And Marcellin says there was another woman also, an unnamed woman, who is the killer. Now that person can be completely fabricated for all we know. Now Jillian has been cooperating with the police, so she's been spoken to, and I don't believe she's been arrested or anything. Although in truth there hasn't been any information on this case since April, so who knows what's happening. Now in this interview, Marcellin explained that she has 2 personas. The good side is a female who is fun and perfectly normal, which is what she said. And the male side is the tough, bad side, the one with anger, who has always gotten her in trouble. So, and she also said that everyone is talking about Susan like she is Mother Teresa, and she was not a saint. So whatever that means, I don't know how that plays into this. She was murdered, it doesn't matter if she was a saint or not. But anyway, that is the case. What do you think? Well, I will tell you some of my thoughts. I have to say, first and foremost, the one thing that I kept thinking, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What about fool me 3 times? What do you call that? Because Harvey was put in prison for murder. He got let out. He committed another murder. They let him out again, or they let her out at that point, okay? It was Marceline at that point. Why would you let out a 2-time murderer? The fact that you let out a murderer in the first place who went out and murdered a second time is a terrible shame. That already people will be looking to say, why would you have let Harvey out and he just went and killed somebody else the next year? Like, that's ridiculous. But then to let them out again, I mean, I'm thinking when they let her out, she was 80. So maybe they thought, there's no way she's gonna kill anyone else at this age. No way, Just let her out. She's been in prison for over 50 years altogether. hates women. And that's a different persona than the female persona who likes women. So when Marceline became a woman, I don't think I said that right, but you know what I mean, at that point, as a woman, she didn't have problems with women. Maybe. But she killed Susan as Marceline, so forget it. Okay, I'm not making sense, I'm babbling now. Alright. I don't think there's much more I can say. Bizarre case. And of course, my heart goes out to all of the women who lost their lives at the hands of this killer and the families that were affected as well. So, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found it to be thought-provoking. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I hope you have a wonderful